episode, and I thought it was horrible. So 1 out of 10. So the next episode is The Well. Now, The Well was not as horrific as The Hub, but it is still one of the worst episodes. Okay, first of all, Marvel promised us, they even promised us in the teaser, that we were going to get a follow-up and a tie-in episode to Thor the Dark World, because Thor the Dark World had come out around that time. Okay, Marvel, when you promise a tie-in to Thor the Dark World on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., fans expect more than just an Asgardian, a couple references to Asgard, and a cleanup scene at the very beginning. I mean, like, really, when you went to go see the Avengers, guys, when you guys went to go see the Avengers, did you say, gee, you know, I really would like to see an episode where everybody cleans all the stuff up, all the crap that's happened in New York up, and I'd like to see it every Tuesday night at 8 o'clock on ABC? I personally didn't, so that really made me mad. And second of all, the one Asgardian guy, he was kind of interesting at first, up until they made him sympathetic at the end. That just was stupid. Now, in all fairness, I really did like what they did with Ward in this episode. He had a very sympathetic backstory. I'm glad they didn't go with Sky Ward in this episode, because I'm not a very big fan of Sky and Ward's relationship. But, yeah, I wasn't a big fan of The Well. And not only did they get that one Asgardian professor, but it made no sense. Like Coulson said, gets him because he's supposedly an expert. But why didn't they just go to Selvig's? Why did they not go to Selvig's? Because, I mean, that's what I didn't get. It's like the same thing with Ian Quinn. There was no reason to create Ian Quinn when you could have just gone with what's his name, Justin Hammer from Iron Man 2, and with The Well, you didn't have to go with that Asgardian professor. You could have just gone with Selvig. Selvig had he had a working relationship with S.H.I.E.L.D. from the Avengers, so I don't know why Coulson just didn't go to him. So 2.5 out of 10. Okay, so Repairs. I'm gonna give Repairs a 4 out of 10. It was not the worst step. Well, when you compare it to some other episodes that came out around this time, it wasn't the worst. But it still had a very lackluster plot. I did really like the scene where Sky is talking about the nuns. But aside from that pretty lackluster plot, forgettable characters. Well, aside from the main cast themselves, there were some pretty forgettable characters. And yeah, it was just pretty bad. And I mean, it's probably the second most forgettable episode behind I Spy. But yeah, it was a pretty bad episode. Kind of boring too. I really lost interest, and the last 15 minutes were just absolutely absurd. So yeah, 4 out of 10. Okay, so the next two episodes, I'm gonna count them in a pair because I'm giving them both the same rating. This includes The Bridge and The Magical Place. The Bridge was the mid-season finale to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Pretty lackluster plot and definitely a filler, but it was fun to see the return of Mike Peterson. And I will admit, when Mike Peterson supposedly died, when he was in that explosion, I thought he was dead. I seriously thought he was dead. So I was shocked when in The Magical Place he just showed up again. So yeah, I really liked these two episodes. Now the first, The Bridge, now I thought, well, both of them, the reason they both I'm giving them a 7 out of 10. They were average. They weren't, they were positive. They were fine. The reason I'm giving them both the same rating is, yeah, the plot was pretty lackluster as always, but well, not as always, because later it gets really good. But one of the things, though, I did find it amusing, and some of the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. episodes that came out around this time were rather boring, and these were amusing, and a lot of times the humor is, a little bit overly, boring. But this time I found the humor to be kind of funny, and I actually laughed during some points, especially when May is in the car and she's having May and Coulson are sitting in Lola, and May all of a sudden and then all of a sudden May says, Ward and I had sex, and then Coulson said, I found him! I thought that was really funny, so I'd give it a 7 out of 10. Oh, and the magical place, by the way. Magical place, yeah, I'd say 7 out of 10. Again, kind of a lackluster plot, bit of a filler, but Sky was this is one even though Sky was annoying, this is one of the few times when she was actually useful. Up until later on, but and also I really liked what they did with Coulson and I really liked how they presented that like the one thing where Coulson is dreaming. I think that was probably the best out of these two episodes. It was one of the best moments on the show. Maybe my favorite moment, aside from the one moment in the finale that I really loved. Actually, a couple moments in the finale that I really loved. But yeah, so Bridge in the Magical Place, 7 out of 10. Okay, so the next episode, Seeds, 6.5 out of 10. Better than most episodes, but I mean, still kind of a lackluster plot. And same with Graviton. I was waiting for Donnie throughout the entire episode to become Blizzard, and he didn't get his powers until the very end, and that did really make me mad. So yeah, so Seeds is a 6.5 out of 10. Okay, guys, so it kind of seems like I'm going a little bit hard on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. so far, huh? Well, guess what? Next episode tracks 10 out of 10. Easy 10 out of 10. This episode is brilliant. Holy crap. This was my favorite episode of the entire series up until the most recent Season 2 episode. And by the way, I will be doing a Season 2 review after Season 2 ends. But, my gosh, this was a brilliant episode. I love Trax. Trax was just such a great episode. It was just... okay, paced itself incredibly well. Wasn't too slow, wasn't too fast. Second of all, you got a Stan Lee cameo. Stan Lee. Third of all, lots of suspense. Fourth of all, it really toyed with my mind because right after that episode, they said we had to wait a month because of the Olympics. And that really made me mad. It's just like, oh, right when the show is getting better, we're going to make you wait a month. It's like, really? Really? And I didn't like that. Anyways, so it really toyed with me, and also what I really, really, really liked about it was not only did it toy with what really made me it toy with my mind was the cliffhanger at the end where Sky is dying. I mean, I wasn't a big fan, so and I didn't think Sky was gonna die because they were like right in the middle of like they were just right in the middle of making right in the middle of revealing her mystery, so they just so I kind of guessed that they wouldn't kill her off, but nonetheless I really wanted to see how that was going to be resolved, and I wasn't sure. So I'd give this episode an easy 10 out of 10. And Deathlock was brilliant. We get to see Mike Peterson as Deathlock. That was really awesome. Ian Quinn, only time I really liked Ian Quinn that much, because Ian Quinn almost became really almost psychotic. I mean, when he was shooting Sky, I mean, oh my gosh, that was just brutal and awesome. But I love the pacing. The pacing, it wasn't too slow and it wasn't too rushed because it went back and forth. And I really liked that narrative. I really wish they would do that narrative more often because I really liked it. So Trax was just brilliant. It was just freaking brilliant. I'm giving it a 10 out of 10. Now the next episode is Tahiti. 9.5 out of 10. Wasn't as good as Trax, but it still was quite a brilliant episode. Now the one thing I didn't like about it was Sky. I mean, like even people that hate Sky have said that it was really hard to feel emotionally attached to Sky, unless you're a Sky lover. unless you're like the biggest of S.H.I.E.L.D. fans. So I really didn't like that, but nonetheless, it still had a lot of suspense. And I really thought it was a stroke of genius that the enemy itself was more so Sky's deathbed, and not really. There wasn't really a bad guy who came out and said "Mwah, ha 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 ha." It was really her deathbed that was the antagonist, and I thought that was just a stroke of genius, really. And I really liked Garrett. We got our first appearance, our first look at Garrett. He was a great villain. And he was played by the great Bill Paxton. So yeah, I just love this episode. So 9.5 out of 10. Okay, so Yes Man, I'm gonna give it a 9 out of 10. It was a great episode, and finally we got a crossover. But here's my one major problem with it. At this point, the show was starting to get darker and edgier and a little bit more serious, and it didn't feel like Sif really fit in at this point in the series. But nonetheless, she was still done really well. And also another thing that kind of bothers me is the fact that the only reason the only reason they did that was because of the overwhelming hatred and disappointment by fans for the episode The Well, because everybody wanted a character from Thor: The Dark World to appear in The Well, because that was supposed to be the Thor: The Dark World tie-in episode, and because they didn't do that, people got annoyed, so Marvel said, "Oh, I know, we'll do this." But nonetheless, great episode. I'd give it a 9 out of 10. Next episode, End of the Beginning, I'd give an 8.5 out of 10. It was nice to see the return of Bill Paxton's Garrett, and the return of Triplet. But and this episode definitely had me at the edge of my seat, especially the last 15 minutes of it. But the one thing that really bothered me about this episode was that was how much it felt like Scooby-Doo. It really felt like Scooby-Doo, and I didn't like that about the episode, but overall, it was quite great. Definitely had me at the edge of my seat, so I'd give it an 8.5 out of 10. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was definitely getting better at this point. I will say I was starting to get a little bit worried, because it was only slightly going downhill week by week since Tracks. But guess what? Next episode, turn, 10, 10, 10 out of 10. Holy crap. Holy crap, this episode was incredible. I mean, it tied in to Captain America, the Winter Soldier, because, Captain America, the Winter Soldier, had that kind of, it had Hydra, and that's where they introduced Hydra into Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And this episode, oh crap, this had my jaw drop to the ground. I was convinced that the clairvoyant was first off, the clairvoyant. I was convinced that the clairvoyant was actually Zeke Stane, and it wasn't Zeke Stane, but it turned out to be Garrett. So that really made me shocked. But what was really shocking, what was just which just had my jaw just dropped to the ground, was when they revealed that Ward was actually working for Hydra. That was just a major shocker. Really, really well done. I love that. So, turn, 10 out of 10. So, next is Providence. 7.5 out of 10. Really good episode, but I didn't like it. It was really a great episode. And I loved learning a lot more about Hydra. And it definitely had me at points at the edge of my seat. But overall, it was very much of a filler. And it felt like they were just stalling time until the finale. So I'd give it about 7.5 out of 10. Okay, so the next two episodes, I'm going to count in a pair. That includes The Only Light in Darkness and Nothing Personal. 8.5 out of 10. They were both kind of fillers, but I really liked that we actually got Blackout, and he was an actual villain this time. Even though I wish he had felt a little bit more like a villain, he actually was a villain, unlike with Donnie and Franklin Hall, who never became Graviton or Blizzard. And we finally got to see the cellist. And Nothing Personal definitely had me at the at the edge of my seat. So I like that too. So 8.5 out of 10. Now I'm also going to